thought I'd make a video on this topic before I go to this interview. You know, my mother's twin, I don't even know what to call her because I don't like calling her mother because she's not my mom. She's my mother's twin, so, you know, I just know her name was Orpinel, or middle name, I think she said. But she looks identical to my mother, almost very identical, very close, very identical. So I think she's probably mentally more the stronger, forward pushing one out of the three, or aggressive as well. But anyway, as far as I have anything to say with, my mother's twin, I speak to her. Sometimes you tell her to tell suggestions at me, and it's supposed to just sort of let me just chew on this bait, and whatever it is that grows from that sprout could be safe, could be realizing, could be understanding. But she said something about maybe, I don't know, Romania. And she said something like the word Romania, and I thought, the only people that I know that are celebrities that could be from Romania or had ancestry, at least half Romanian, was the Kardashians. And there was a Romanian genocide, I know, that was like the Holocaust. I have done very little research about it, but I know that there was something. I know in the Holocaust, there was a lot of Romanian people that were killed, murdered there. There was a lot of Romanians. I remember watching the number. The Jewish people were like, I don't even know, I think Jewish was like 700,000, 600,000, and like 100,000, I want to say at least Romanian. Then there was like, these other countries that had like 40,000, and it was estimated in those numbers. But Romanian people were a pretty high number, I remember. It was somewhere in the 50 to 100,000 people that were butchered there. And so I don't know. I say this because who knows, who could be related to Frankie or from a distant relative. Maybe it's Sadia Khan, or I can't even pronounce her name, but, I don't ever know who it is. Maybe my biological father I thought was from Brazil and he's really from Romania. It's the same thing like when I went to Mexico and I saw my grandma and I didn't understand how this white woman was my mother. I mean, my grandma. She was white. I mean, she had very light colored brown hair at 70 years old. And, I just remember she didn't particularly fit that description. So the reason I say that is because, she could have immigrated from a different country. A lot of people did that in Mexico. A lot of people did that in other countries because people are not fitted to live a better lifestyle necessarily. They're settled to be content with what they have, and that is very poor throughout life. Some people feel content living in villages. They don't have running electricity a lot of the times. And it's very much like living on a farm and just doing a lot of small basic things in life to survive. And that's it. They don't plan to go to, like a lot of people want to go to the U.S. for better life because it's so luxury and it's just opportunities, which is always great, but some people just don't care. They're fine the way that they are, living on a farm and not bothering anybody and just feeding the chickens and doing like minor farm work and planting their vegetables, and that's it. So that's why a lot of people would want to go, don't care. They would also run to Mexico because they know that there wouldn't be very many people there, or they just happened to land there because there was a boat that was going to take them there, or a plane that did from the wars. Civil wars and genocide in so many different countries and places. So I don't know if, I thought I'd bring up that story, but, I don't know if that's my biological father. To my understanding, I remember my biological father saying, I want to say, I think he said Brazil. I could be wrong, Maybe I misheard that, but I want to say that I thought he could have said. I think my mother also said, "Oh no, he's from Brazil." I think he could have been talking about Robert Zarate as well. Robert Zarate, I think he could have been probably could have been from Brazil because he was pretty tan, Inca tan, and he didn't have any hair, a single hair on his body, anywhere on his shoulders and down. I mean, he was pretty baldless with hair. So that's usually common with high levels of Indian blood and like Incas and people that lived in the jungles. If you watch those Incas and Mayans, a lot of the times when you watch their movies and they talk about what they wore, leaves and stuff, they don't have any hair on their body. Even though they have real beautiful fine hair on their heads, they don't have the hair on their bodies. And so I particularly don't know exactly. Maybe we could have been talking about Robert Zarate, I don't know, but it'd be interesting, to find out where my ancestries, whatever bloodline I come from. Maybe my mother doesn't even come from Mexico. There's a high chance. Maybe my mother's Romanian, and I don't even know, because I try to look at facial structures to see how the facial structures can relate to a Romanian culture, or like some of these cultures that we don't hear very much, because like nobody hears and knows anything about Romania. Like all we know is that, like, for those that do know a little bit of history, decent histories, we know that Count Dracula that's where they had the castles there, and that's where Count Dracula, the legendary, ruthless, barbaric monster, was the evil villain of castles. And but other than that, there's that country and like a few other ones nobody ever hears anything about. Like there's nothing that ever happens there. It's just pretty just mellow and calm all the time. There wasn't like a drastic change or anything, like they came up with a new invention or anything. It's still, still living in this sort of 18th century lifestyle. But not that it's a bad thing. There's different growth process to it that, because of that, they grow and evolve beautifully, much way than any other places and parts of the world. But as far as that goes, I don't know who could have came from there. I think it could be my mother, because if my mother didn't come from a biological, if it turns out my grandma was a transgender, and that my mom was taken care of by the transgender, however this happened in life, I don't know. But if this is what happened, where my mother's mother wasn't even her mother, then what would happen? Who was my mom's biological? She could have came from a different country, because my mom, she's kind of light complected. She doesn't look necessarily like just straight up Mexican. She does, but she looks like she has something else in her, like something that's like, foreign necessarily. And it's common, you can usually relate to height, people that are tall, or people with their noses, or sometimes with their ears or jaw lines, or very common with beards. Obviously, if people that have heavy beards don't have very much, that are Mexican black hair, probably don't have a whole lot of Native American Indian blood in them because of the hair growth. I was very common in the Spaniard days. I'm not sure how Mexican people necessarily have beards, what that race, because there's several different ethnicities. There's only 4 altogether in the human race, but there's supposed to be just a number. There's a pretty good number of them in Mexico, where you have like the people from the Mayans, you have the Mexicans, you have the Incas, you have the Native American Indians that live in Mexico, and they cultivate it in groups like that. So it's a little bit of mixture. They even have high levels of like all these white people, these sort of blonde hair, blue-eyed Mexican-speaking people, and that's all they do. They live in Mexico, and there's villages of them. And for some reason, it's because the people moved from Germany and from Europe, and they settled and migrated there, and grew their families and cultivated there. But as far as anything goes with that, I thought I'd make a video on that. I have no idea. Not that it would make me any difference. I'm still all American. I'm still, Hispanic and spoke Spanish. It's the same thing. Like if I heard Frankie turns out he's not even my biological brother for some reason, and it turns out that he's foreign, but he speaks Spanish and he has a Mexican name, and he ate Mexican food, and he lived a Mexican life, and he was very proud to be Mexican and to say the word, to be Mexicano. It's like, hey, we're Mexican. Like he had a little bit of that, a little bit more pronounced than I did growing up. Even though that I was proud, but to me, Frankie would seem to be a little bit more conveying that to me at times. And it turns out that if he wasn't, for some reason he got switched out birth. I don't even know. Who knows? Maybe Frankie had some Indian, some Pakistan blood in him, and I didn't even know about it the whole time. So I don't even know. So, but, I thought I'd make a video on that.